YouTube, this is Nite and welcome to the first video of the 2021 year. This is a match of the week between Fortuna and Maitre. Alright, on the bottom we have Fortuna spawning as our green UEF commander, plopping down 2 air factories, and his opponent in the top of Boolean Complex we have Maitre, who is our purple UEF player, plopping down 2 air factories, but he's actually going to plop down a third one here pretty quick. I'm going to speed this up. Fun fact, I have actually already recorded this once. This is a pretty lengthy game, but it was very laggy and I was very confused why, and I forgot that there was an NVIDIA driver that kind of screwed us Supreme Commander 2 players and FAF players as well, as the drivers just caused unbelievable frame rates, and I didn't think it was bad, and it probably isn't too bad, but the video recording was even worse. There was not only skipped frames, there was actual smudge marks as I was zooming in and out, so I absolutely have to re-record this. This was a very interesting match, I will tell you. I actually didn't really suspect it. Fortuna sent it to me as so this is not obviously a league match or anything, and he actually sent it to me quite a while ago, last year, before even the Invitational I think happened, and I was just very busy with the Invitational, so I apologize, Fortuna, for not getting to this sooner. And he just asked me to give him a couple of pointers and or my feedback in general, so that's what I try to do in most of my replays, but I hope you guys don't mind if I do it just a little bit more here. There's an engagement by Maitre. Of course, he did grab those 3 air factories, as I mentioned before, and doing a very nice job here utilizing that advantage and taking this air force of Fortuna out very quickly. That's exactly what you want to do with such an aggressive build. That's the reason why you do it. And the one thing that Fortuna right away that I would say here is that you scouted this, you scouted the triple air factory, so you really should have put your planes in a more defensive position behind your factories and got some anti-air. You managed to get it, but it was a little too late, and you engaged very far in advance of your base, so you just need to slow down your opponent. You need to keep or have him keep making his wasps so that he tries to keep up with you, because he can't make too many bombers unless he wins this fight. And Maitre should be transitioning probably 2 of his air factories at this point to making bombers, or at least make 1 factory dedicated to bombers and the other one half and half, because he's definitely in advance in an advantageous position here, but he doesn't want to fall too far behind because you still have those 2 air factories. So it's just a matter of, again, kind of selecting your counter pick, and that's what the best players manage to do very efficiently in this game, is not only do they select their upfront strategies very well, but they also select their counter strategies. But anyway, while you guys are here and we are getting these the mid game essentially set up, I did want to talk about the SCS 2021. As you know, it is coming back, and it's going to be actually expanding into 2v2, and we're going to have way more events happening. So the first kind of focus point here was to really focus on the balance between the player matchups. That was one of the biggest feedbacks, and not only for the SCS, but for every single tournament. People are very disappointed in how the players are matched up and not everybody playing, and that's what I tried to address with the open structure last year, having the group stages, but that didn't really work out. I mean, it did work out, but people still complained, and also they ended up being very large tournaments, and it was a lot of involved time for me. So I will comment here another thing, Fortuna, you do want to cover your expansion, so what you're doing is absolutely right. You do want to keep expanding, but unfortunately, of course, if you don't cover your expansion via anti-air or something, anti-air turrets, I mean, you won't be able to utilize that. And that's the one thing you absolutely have to get when you're playing such an aggressive opening, is because Maitre obviously can't afford too many mass extractors, although he's doing a good job, but I think you definitely could be doing more. You're just committing a lot into land. So yeah, a big point or a big focus was to have even player matchups. So what I did is create 3 1v1 leagues. So we're going to have A, B, and C, and each one is obviously for a different skilled player. And the way you balance that out is because, of course, for C it's a little easier. But it's also harder to qualify because you get less SCS points, and also less spots eventually go on to the season final tournaments, which brings me to the new season final tournaments, which are all going to be qualification based. So essentially we're going to have 3 invitational tournaments, if you want to think about it. So from each league season, we're going to have some qualifying from leagues, some from SCS points, and then another thing that I will mention in a bit here. But yeah, so the finals is how you mainly qualify for the big tournament at the end of the year, which is of course going to be again the invitational like last year. So right now it's the great opportunity to start joining some of these events. The league is closing today actually, so by the time this video pops up, you probably will be too late to sign up. So that's a little unfortunate, but we had 24 players already sign up for the 3 leagues. And then we actually have 6 teams for 2v2. So we have a lot of games coming up. And I don't know what I will be doing for the replays of the week segment, because I don't know if I can do 4 replays a week. And I obviously don't want to be casting just the 1v1 A league, because that's obviously where the best matches will be coming from. But I also want to cast 2v2s, and I really want to feature some of these lower leagues as well. So maybe I'll do once in a while more, or I'll be doing more than 1 replay of the week. So maybe it will become a different segment altogether. But in any case, another new thing is the Serpents Open tournaments, which are now going to be monthly tournaments. And they're going to be smaller tournaments, and again, for qualification to the finals. And those will be open to everybody, so you'll be able to participate in those. But while this does look like a lot more events, I think this will actually be a whole lot easier for me to deal with, and hopefully less work, because the final tournaments will no longer be 2 days, and it will be less players. So I think it will be a lot more straightforward for me to deal with it. So let's go back to the game, and I did want to mention something else. Fortuna, is while I think you did the absolutely right thing transitioning into land here against the triple air opening, you didn't you weren't aggressive enough with this transition, and you're hesitating where you want to send your army. And you could have built your base a little bit higher up, kind of cut off Maitre's air a little bit more. And you could have tried splitting these units a little bit more too, and try to do some damage, because Maitre is not even pulling back his air to deal with this. He actually managed to get 3 land factories and producing nothing but tanks. He's now able to kind of hold you back. And because you don't have that many tanks, of course, you can't really push into this. And you're still trying, so I definitely wouldn't be doing this. I probably would pull back and try to take out this expansion like you were trying to do initially. And definitely try and set up a base a little bit higher up. Maitre doing a good job flying around the map. His air movement is pretty decent. This game definitely better than most players, as you know from the SCS 2020. I've commented on that a lot. I think the top players move their air quite a bit better than a lot of the players. So, and you did an absolutely amazing job expanding here. I'm not sure how you managed to squeeze out so many land factories, especially because Maitre has more expansions than you. I guess he's prioritizing the research stations here. I'm going to speed up the game again because I know how long this game is. Yeah, so you did a marvelous job with your build order. I think the first time I was watching this, I was kind of questioning how much mass you had banked. And I think you're probably going to start getting a lot of mass here in a second, despite all of these land factories. But Maitre has more mass extractors than you, I think, at this point. Although, I'm actually not sure, because you've expanded forward quite a bit and Maitre didn't. And this is a very deadly push from Maitre. He's pushing out with his land forces. He has P shields now. I think Fortuna, you could have also maybe grabbed a couple of P shields earlier. That would definitely yield you a good advantage. But now it is Maitre that has the P shields and obviously demolishers and the tanks, and he can just push this out. I think because there's just I don't see any tanks in this composition. The only tanks I see are in the back here. And yeah, there's an air engagement over here. Fortuna is doing a very nice job trying to engage over his Arcanists. But unfortunately for him, Maitre is also doing a good job trying to fight on the very outskirts here and pulling his air back as he's engaging. So that's pretty well for him, pretty well done by Maitre, our purple UEF here, as he manages to pull back again and peel off actually half of Fortuna's units here. And yeah, I think Maitre is just a little too scared of these units. He might not be aware that most of these are Arcanists. I'm not quite sure why he's so scared, because this army can honestly just roll through Fortuna's army. And this is the first point in the game where I thought that, you know, this game should have been over. Fortuna definitely lost this game at this point, and Maitre just didn't push this out because, again, there's just nothing here. I don't think Fortuna had or has Mex gun, or what do they call it? Research guns? Gauss cannons? Played this game for 10 years and I still don't remember what the upgrade is. But now we have Fat Boys coming on for Maitre. And I think, yeah, now there's Gauss cannons for the our purple UEF commander. So that attacking army is going to get dealt with very quickly, especially without too many tanks in there. And I think all the mobile missile launchers got taken out there. Maybe one left. No, I actually don't see any left. And yeah, this army is still very good for Maitre. The thing that makes it good is obviously those P shields. And oh, there's actually, wow, there's didn't notice that the first time I was watching, but Fortuna upgraded the afterburners. Not sure exactly what the purpose of that is at this point, because again, he doesn't have that many ground firing units. I guess he's just trying to dodge. And he actually, you know, looking at this, I'm not sure whose mask this is. But yeah, looking at this, you know, he's doing a terrible job. But again, Maitre is just being a little indecisive now. Another air engagement and another win for our purple player. And I think I mentioned this before, but Maitre is very unfamiliar to me. You know, I've seen him play some team tournaments, I think, but not much 1v1. So I'm really hesitant to say, you know, what this player is capable of, but I do know that he's a very good player. And oh my goodness, Fortuna is actually okay. Maybe this is what Maitre was afraid of, because somehow Fortuna is just doing so much damage despite all his P shields and despite that. Oh, this his no. Yeah, I mean, Maitre is doing a nice job here, and he has afterburners as well. But I did want to say that Maitre just reminds me of Osmos quite a bit. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's playing UEF now, but yeah, he just reminds me of Osmos and that typical air UEF play, transition to land, dev ball, and look at all this mass. And now Fortuna is getting enough research for a Fat Boy. And I don't remember. I was planning on telling you more about this graphics issue. And I don't remember if I told you how to solve it, but you probably already know. If you know my channel, you probably know the big Discord channel. And I'm pretty sure AlphaX has posted about this in there, and it's a well-known issue. But all you want to do is revert back to the previous version of the driver. Probably to the one that's before December, and it should work. That's what I did, and now it seems to be pretty smooth, or at least back to what it was. I was so confused. I was like, did my computer get slow in 2021? Is it time for an upgrade? No, I still have 2 more years before I want to consider upgrades. Osmos doing again a good job here. You know, realizing his advantage here, while he is you know, he is only building wasps. His opponent doesn't have bombers because he simply cannot afford to produce bombers at this point. He needs to try and keep up with the air of his opponent as best as he can. And it looks like Fortuna has a bad rally point here, by the way. That's not what you want to see either. Still sending those wasps over there. That's a bit unfortunate. But yeah, this is absolutely what you want to do against a player like that, because while these transports are going to get picked off very quickly by the Wasps, and Fortuna should really have picked this up because he has a radar here, and upgrading in response to this some Gauss cannons and anti-air cannons on his research stations and mass extractors, definitely a good idea there. So while those transports are going to be very quick to fall, the ground units aren't, because there's no gunships. And while Fortuna does have these Gauss cannons now on the research stations, these mobile missile launchers can really outflank, or not outflank, but you know, survive long enough to do significant amount of damage, and keep harassing Fortuna. There's now a very, very deadly P-shield blob from Maitre here. And, you know, Fortuna has managed to get so many land factories. Like, he's producing so much at this point. I'm just really confused why Maitre is not producing as much, because, again, I have a feeling that he was advanced or in the lead for the mass production, because he had all these expansions earlier. But, of course, he hasn't been taking the front of the map. And that's probably the best thing, because Fortuna managed to spam out so much land here. But it's just hard for me to believe that Maitre is that far behind. He has 3 air factories, 1 gantry, and 6 land factories, while Fortuna has 2 air, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 land factories and 4 land gantries. So it's hard for me to believe that he's that far behind to be that badly outproduced. But this army is still pretty scary. Of course, Fortuna does have a lot of demolishers now, activates those afterburners, but unfortunately he walks into a pretty big Fat Boy and Demolisher shot there and loses about a quarter of his army, I want to say. Very well done by Maitre, but I think it's more of a mistake for Fortuna for going in with afterburners straight into that shot. And you know, now it's a little more even now that Fortuna has his second Fat Boy here. And these fights are just always so fun to watch, because it's all about the micro in these matchups, because you have to micro from the demolisher shots essentially and keep your P shields regenerating and push back and forth. And wow, actually Fortuna just has an insane production of land. And now I don't think Maitre can push this out, because there's just, but that's a very good shot from Maitre. And that's a very large chunk of Fortuna's land. Look at this large amount of land forces going down. And of course it's due to that demolisher that's firing from the back. One shot kills, manages to find a good opportune time in between the shields being down to take out so many units. And I've never seen this many units die in one place. This is what happens when a demolisher connects with a bunched up ball of units. And I think Mr. Steal Your Girl would be very disappointed to see this go unreclaimed. But yeah, that was a very interesting game. So now we are definitely in the late game. And the thing is that I didn't note this, but I noted this in the first time I was playing. But Maitre has been ahead in everything in this game. But somehow he's behind in his army. He has been ahead on the air production. The only thing that he hasn't been ahead on was the land production. But he's been ahead on the experimental. He's been ahead on the land experimental. He's been ahead on the air experimental as well. And Fortuna has been late. He's getting his land or air gantries, and he had quite a bit of air or land gantries as well. And that's how he catches up, is somehow he has the mass to be producing this many you know, experimentals and land units at the same time. And what Fortuna, actually he has his land factories paused, so that's probably why. And what Fortuna is doing well here, well, you can't quite see it here, but he does have this nice concave setup where these units can't really fire onto the Fat Boys if Fortuna, especially if Fortuna splits them apart. I think that's absolutely the right thing to do here for Fortuna. But let's see how he chooses to engage here. This is a very nice concave to set up, and you can just crossfire with your Fat Boys. This is my absolute favorite setup here. Well, that Fat Boy is very low. Yeah, this is going to be a slow push by Maitre with all those demolishers. He has 2 demolishers there, and that's a very, very strong force. Another upgrade on those units. I'm not quite sure what was researched there. And quite a bit of units or structures are falling for Fortuna here. And those demolishers are even managing to connect with the Fat Boys. So this is a pretty deadly push here. Fortuna really needs to split his Fat Boys, and we're at 32 minutes. I actually didn't even realize it was that late. But this row of mass extractors or mass converters is also coming into play here, as well as for, no, actually not for Maitre. Okay, so that's how Fortuna is starting to outproduce. He just has an insane economy because he prioritized mass conversion over these experimentals. So very, very nicely done. I don't like this bunched up, so that's one thing that you could do better, is not bunch up your Fat Boys in this situation. You absolutely need to learn how to spread your units to be most efficient. And that really goes for land units as well. You know, how Aeon players find most efficiency is to spread their units apart and have control groups. So he is kind of doing that here. Has some Fat Boys up here and over here, but it's not as big of a concave, but it's still, as you can see, doing a job, in part to Maitre not really microing his units. I think he's trying to stay next to his jackhammer a little too much here, and yeah, that's just not gonna. Yeah, that's actually where jackhammers can be quite a deterrent in such a fight, is if you control your units right around them, and if your opponent just keeps firing around the jackhammer, it's just gonna hit your main army as well. So we see Commander getting destroyed, but it is Fortuna who's just leaving his body and just going to keep his commander safe. And we do see mega fortresses coming out instead of gunships, and Fortuna is prioritizing gunship production here. So I do expect that Maitre should win this fight. Yes, it looks like he is, but Fortuna is going to pull back to his anti-air, but Maitre is not going to be fooled by that. Pulls back his forces, and then somehow Fortuna still has more air here, and that's a lot of green. That jackhammer is going to go down so quickly. That's so many Fat Boys. Oh, I see. Okay, so Maitre's trying to prioritize those gunships. Looks like Fortuna is actually, amidst all this chaos, trying to prioritize those mass extractors. Pretty good idea. There's also regular gunships coming out for Maitre, but look at this. Look at the amount of air gantries that's coming out for Fortuna. Now, I don't think there is a reality where even on this great economy, he can sustain this many land gantries or air gantries coming online and producing at the same time, but that's still a ridiculous amount producing here, and they're all making gunships. You can't see that, and I can't see that, but I know that because there's going to be a lot of gunships. There's already a lot of gunships out on the map for Fortuna. And air fortresses, I think most of us would agree that we would expect air fortresses to be more of a contributing factor to air fights. And Fortuna does have quite a bit of air factories as well. He actually managed to get, wow, this is more than I thought he had. He has 7, I believe, on the field right now. That's quite a bit actually, compared to, I think Maitre is still on his 3. There is an air engagement here. There's just so much happening. There's a ground fight happening, although there's basically a jackhammer for Maitre, so it's not really an air fight or a land fight. But wow, these fortresses are actually going to focus down these Fat Boys. Oh my goodness. Absolutely incredible. That is insane. Alright, so those Fat Boys get cleared off with a nice poach from Maitre. I'm not sure why Fortuna didn't have most of his forces over here, but this is what's interesting to me. Look at how quickly these fortresses get melted by AC-1K terrors. This was absolutely a surprise to me. And we're watching it on double speed, but still these fortresses go down like butter. way faster than I would expect them to. And apparently AC-1Ks are just a good counter to Air Fortress play, apparently. Goodness gracious. And Fortuna is doing a nice job fighting over his AA, so he manages to, of course, win that. And of course, these gunships are not going to be too... I mean, they still hit the Wasps a little bit, but they're just not going to be efficient against multiple targets. It's just what they're weak against. Just not weak enough. I think ultimately, to make gunships balanced, you need to have them have really low health and not be impacted by shields, especially for those smaller gunships. But apparently, against this build of fortresses is just way too good. And I mean, Maitre should still technically be winning this, but he just lost those fortresses way too quickly, and he doesn't have the land or air factory production to sustain his Wasp production. We do see nuclear missile silos coming up from both players. Maitre is trying to set up a little bit of a turtling position up there in the top left, or sorry, top right of the map. And I just love Boolean Complex, guys. I don't know. Most of the games that I've seen on this map have just been wonderful. Now, I still think that Maitre should have won this with that first land push that he did when he had way too many tanks and P-shields against Fortuna, who just didn't have anything, essentially. Ground firing. He had a lot of anti-air, but I wasn't going to carry the fight there. And yeah, I mean, now Fortuna is well back into the fight, and look how quickly these jackhammers meld. Unfortunately, the gunships are going to leave here. And Maitre is doing just a good job split pushing also with those fortresses. Of course, fortresses are no slouches either. They do quite a bit of damage against ground forces. The thing about them is that they're like... I want to pause this game to show you. But these terrors, they have 17,000 health, and the fortresses have 30,000. And you might say, you know, that's almost twice. But I think there's also upgrades on these planes. Yeah, they have similar upgrades, actually. But that's just not enough. I mean, the difference between a jackhammer... Where's a jackhammer? The jackhammer has 39,000 and a fat boy has 15,000. And I think that's a more appropriate difference. I think definitely AC-1 terrors need to have less health than a... Not a jackhammer, but definitely less than a jackhammer, but less than a fat boy. Probably less than 10,000. I think 10,000 should be the absolute max on them. It's absolutely ridiculous. I wonder how much the regular gunships have. Do we have a gunship out on the field? Doesn't appear to be so. No, there are no gunships out on the field. Yeah, just look. There's so much. The Wasps didn't even engage there. Did not even engage there. And it's so weird to see fortresses go down so quickly. And I guess it's not weird. Like, whenever I play fortresses, they kind of melt sometimes. But, you know, the first nuclear missile launch is on its way. Let's see where Maitre chooses to place this nuclear missile silo. And Fortuna is just doing a great job pulling back his air to the right position to be covered by his anti-air as well. So that's another reason why he's doing such a great job keeping up with Maitre. Well, at this point, he's not even keeping up. He's slowly starting to outproduce here. Always fighting over air or anti-air or his units. You know, he has like a little bit of units here and there. I would be trying to send these fat boys a little farther, but of course these jackhammers are just a little too obnoxious at this point. And look, these just don't even care about this fortress. So there was another nuclear missile launcher or missile launch, by the way, guys, and it was targeted at Maitre's nuke. And it was targeted to try and take out some of these gunships, because this is a ridiculous amount of gunships. I think there's at least 20 in there, probably more, close to 30, especially before that nuke went down, and that's just absolutely insane. And what I'm curious about is I guess Fortuna didn't even attempt to make nukes, which is very curious to me, but at this point, Fortuna is just gonna roll over, because that's just so many freaking gunships. That's absolutely insane. And you know, even though most of these gunships are low, they're just going to melt that ACU, and Maitre is going to go down. So Fortuna, overall, I think you did a very good job. I'm surprised you were able to keep up in production. So much so that you didn't even just keep up, you straight up outproduced your opponent, despite Maitre grabbing those expansions earlier, I think, in the mid game. It's not really a surprise. It should have been done so because Maitre opened with triple air factories, but I just didn't think, I thought he was still ahead on that. So you did a great job. I think you lost the early mid game, but every single part of the game afterwards was very, very good. And especially to maybe not such a big surprise, but the gunship's just doing a very good job against those fortresses. So you were just able to outproduce Maitre completely, and the end game was always going to be won by you, especially because you catapulted your ACU out. So that's it for this replay, though. As you guys know, this or might know, Fortuna submitted this outside of the league, so this wasn't a league match. So I do, consider outside matches for the match of the week. So send those to me. But, as I mentioned earlier in the video, with us having 4 leagues, 3 1v1s and 1 2v2, it's going to be a lot of potential replays. So it's going to be harder for me to select yours, but do still, send those to me. I don't really check any of those Discord servers for, those servers where you place down replays. So because I just don't have enough time for that particularly. And I know a lot of just weird replays go into there. So if you have a good replay that you want me to consider for replay of the week, don't hesitate to send that to me in a direct message, or I have a special place in my Nite server, Discord server, where you can place those. So check that out, and there should be a lot of Supreme Commander 2 stuff coming your way. And a big priority for me in the new year is not just Supreme Commander 2, but actually other stuff. So I hope you guys support me with that as well, and check out some of my other videos. I do D&D, I do tutorials, I do reviews, as you've probably seen in my new intro video. So I hope you guys support me that way as well. As for now, please do like and comment on this video, and I will see you in the next video very, very soon. Have a good day, everybody.